But he's giving you the safety tips. If you fall over, put your feet out in front of you, kick off rocks you're going after, and swim left. So imagine all of that and all that instruction, and you hit that bubbling white water, and you do exactly what you're told, and you're scared, and you're working hard, and you're fearful that you're going to go in that water and take a swim, and you hit that 6-foot spot perfectly and come out on the other side. You don't taste the rock. You don't go for a swim, and you're exhilarated because of the excitement, the thrill, the teamwork, and the leadership that was given to you. And that's an experience that I've had when I do the upper gully, really 2 years in a row now. And the guide, Doug, talks you through it and works you through it. And you go through these rapids, 5 of these Class 5s, almost back to back. And this guide, a guy that, I don't know, probably works 120 days a year, brings in 15,000, I don't know, lives in the woods, loves his jobs, and leads groups. He says he leads groups of bikers to Baptists to bachelorettes on any given day. And each group he has to teach, he has to lead, he has to educate, and he has to ensure their safety. He says it's not Disneyland. It's a high-risk adventure. In fact, when we get off the bus, they tell us all of the scary stuff that can go on, and they say, money back guaranteed. You can turn around and go back. But Doug also taught me a lot of other lessons on this rafting trip. He's a guy of deep faith and an interesting perspective, and he's a storyteller. And he gave one comment to me at one point in the midst of a conversation, and he said, you know, the higher you build the walls, the more narrow your point of view. The higher you build the walls, the more narrow your view. So I learned a lot from Doug on this rafting trip. I learned about leadership, I learned about stick-to-itiveness, and I learned about thinking differently. And I think those are very important lessons for all of us as we face the white waters of change that introduce themselves to every day of our lives. And as volunteers and as leaders in your communities, as professional leaders, as staff, every day we are faced with new challenges and new situations that maybe never presented themselves to us before. And every day it's up to us to think differently, to make sure that we've got the perseverance and the tenacity to work it through, and to ensure that we're bringing the resources and harnessing the resources that allow us to be successful with the challenges that we're facing. And those challenges are great. The global indices are going down. Interest rates are plummeting. The crisis in Europe, one country after another. The unemployment rates here in the United States and the employment challenges are greater than ever, remaining in the teens. We got 7 million people who have been out of work since the beginning of this recession. People predict that we've got to grow 21 million jobs in this decade to get back to what we'd consider a reasonable full employment figure. We've seen studies from very credible organizations that say that if we go the current course and speed, by 2020, we'll have 1.5 million jobs not filled because they require a bachelor's degree, and we don't have the people in our country to fill those jobs. Meanwhile, 6 million unemployed without their high school education. The high school dropout rates are significant. We see some improvement, and depending on how you define it, disconnected youth, dropout rates, populations who live at a level of poverty or with significant barriers are the most challenged in the world that we all mean to serve. Minority populations, people of color, when you look at the dropout figures or the numbers for disconnected youth, they're carrying the higher burden. Poverty breeds poverty. So which comes first? Poverty and disconnectedness and poverty? It's a vicious circle. It's a cycle that I think the people in this room and your institutions, in collaboration with your communities, can break. And you can break it not by yourselves. I heard in one of the videos a call to action to partner, to bring new partners into your fold, and I think that's important. That spirit of collaboration is important. Goodwill cannot do it on our own. Community colleges cannot do it on your own. Businesses cannot do it on their own. But when the communities can come together, we'll be able to take these dismal statistics, these dismal outlooks, and bring hope to your communities and to communities around the country. Because if you think about it, if you think about that gap that I just described, that creates an opportunity for you and for me. That creates an opportunity for figuring out what student success really is, for understanding what do we mean by completion, how much, and what does that result in, and what does that mean for the economy of our community and for our nation. How do we think differently about it, and how do we have the ability to stick to what we commit ourselves to and adapt with the changing situation? So that thinking differently in those big numbers that we deal with every day really boils down to the little numbers, to the individuals, to Kim in San Antonio, Texas, a young lady dropped out of high school. Her parents encouraged her to go back. She didn't, she wasn't ready. I don't know all of the issues that she was facing, but she wasn't ready. She eventually got her GED, and when she was shopping at Goodwill, she saw a pamphlet that talked about good careers, the Good Careers Academy, which is a partnership, a joint venture with Goodwill in San Antonio and Alamo College, a community college who I think has representation here today. Kim saw that pamphlet. She surrounded herself with the supports of Goodwill. She got a case manager. She got a job. She got some education. She got a better job. She got a state credential. She got a raise. She got some more education, and added to that credential, she got another raise. She had the baby. She was pregnant. I may have left that out. And now she's working for the next credential in pharmaceutical technician, as a pharmaceutical technician, where she will get another raise. And she did that because of the partnership, because of the community college, and because of the services of Goodwill that helped her navigate her way through those white waters that existed in her life. And we think about the typical community college student, and I know there's no such thing as a typical or a traditional community college student. But when you look at the big numbers, you know that 2/3 of your students are going part-time. You know that the average age is 29. You know that it's an extraordinarily diverse population of students. And you know that many of your students have a thing called life getting in their way. And I think about Kim, and I think about Goodwill, and how we operate in a world of how do we look at somebody as a whole person and surround them with the tools and supports that they need to maneuver through those challenges. And I think about that success with Kim, and then I take it to my life and my 17-year-old son, Thomas.